This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
And welcome back to Racing Across America. Happy to be joined now by Randy Moss from NBC Sports. Good morning, Randy.
Hey, Seth, good morning. How you doing?
Very good. Happy to have you on board. You're live out there in Southern California, so we want to pick your brain a little bit as we come up to the 2 big days of racing. And first, just get some general comments. I've been saying for the last few days now, really the last couple of weeks, because we knew already Wisedan and Beholder were out, but when the pre-entries came out, record pre-entries, the fields just kind of looked juicy. Since then, we've lost a couple of other marquee names, however, Magician and American Pharaoh. So the marquee names aren't there, but I think it's still shaping up as far as betting to be a couple of really intriguing days.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, from a storyline perspective, I mean, the horses that would be at the very top of the heap may be a little thin compared to past years, because, I mean, when we were prepping for the Breeders' Cup at NBC a few weeks ago, we were talking about, all the various horses that we were really going to hit hard. Wisedan was obviously at the top of that list, and then Beholder was next, and then was the American Pharaoh versus Daredevil matchup, East-West and the Juvenile, and all those go up in smoke. But from top to bottom, the depth of the races and the betting value that you have, as always, in the Breeders' Cup in some of those races, it's just as good as ever. So we're all looking forward to it.
Yeah, and let me ask you, going along that same line, obviously, Wisedan, Beholder, Magician, 3 horses that won last year who won't be back, but Dank, Golden Sense, Secret Circle, they're all back. But, Dank, with her form this year, a little bit questionable. Secret Circle comes in with a similar pattern to last year, but you're still off a layoff in one start. You scratch your head a little bit. Golden Sense, out of the entire couple of days, seems like maybe the most logical favorite. Are there any other horses, or do you agree, a logical favorite in Golden Sense? Is that the horse that maybe attracts the most attention as a most likely winner?
Well, I would say you'd either be looking at Golden Sense, or, in my opinion, you might be looking at Untappable as a single, as a most likely winner. I mean, I know you have closed hatches in there, and I have no problem throwing out the race at Keeneland. So I think that's set up to be possibly a heck of a race between Untappable and closed hatches. But the way Untappable's training and, as brilliant as she's been all season long, with the exception of the Haskell, I think she might be the other horse besides Golden Sense that you can put in that category.
And you talk about the training of Untappable. You've been out there for a week. Is there any buzz? Any horses getting some buzz? I know, just reading the reports, it looks like California Chrome's working well. Fast Anna looks like he had jetpacks strapped on for the weekend workout. What's the buzz in the mornings?
I'll be honest with you, Seth. I mean, there are so many horses out here prepping for the Breeders' Cup. I mean, they're buzzing through the lane seemingly every 30 seconds, and it's from our perspective, what we try to do at NBC, and it's different. It's so much different on TV than it used to be when I worked for the newspaper. But we want to make sure, and you have to, in advance, that we have all these storylines covered. When you're in the newspaper business, or when you're writing for a website or print or anything like that, you have the benefit when a race is run and a horse wins that you may not have expected to win. You can do interviews after the race. You can get online. You can look up some information. You can, after the fact, sort of get up to speed on the story behind that horse. When you're in the TV business and the horses cross the finish line, you can't get caught with your pants down, so to speak. You have to know everything in advance, as much as you can, on all these horses, so that you've got their story and you're ready to come with it. And when we're in just a normal weekend where we have like a couple of races, I mean, we work pretty hard to make sure, we've got every single horse covered, every possible circumstance covered. Now you got 13 races to try to do that with, and it's so daunting that, Jerry and I pull our hair out to try to make sure we've got every base covered, and there's no way we can focus in on watching workouts and things like that. And I think that's overrated anyway, to be honest with you. Unless you're around a horse and you watch the horse train on a daily, weekly basis, you've really got no reference point with which to judge if that horse is training well or not. You know, I mean, some horses just like, for example, a very good example is Shared Belief. You know, I mean, people look at Shared Belief's a couple of his recent workouts, and they weren't fast, and they were like, wow, this horse is not training well. But then you go back and you look at the history of Shared Belief's workouts, and his first breeze after a race is always extremely slow. That's the way Jerry Hollendorfer trains him. A lot of times his last breeze before a race is very slow. He worked 52 the other day, and people are like, oh, he's not training well at all. But, but you got to know the history behind it.
It is interesting that we put so much focus on workouts and what trainers talk about coming into the Triple Crown races and coming into the Breeders' Cup, and you get none of that during the other 362 days of the year. But it does attract a lot of the buzz. Let's hit on some of the races in particular and get maybe some general thoughts. And the one race that is intriguing to me, Wise Dan goes to the sidelines, and we wind up with a really nice full field in the Breeders' Cup Mile. I think a lot of attention will go to Toronado, but I'm really intrigued by Obviously. I think that when you go back to the race in June, the Shoemaker Mile, the big buyer number, a nice front-end win for that one, I think Obviously is really intriguing in the mile.
Glad to hear you say that, because I've had some debates with people around here. I mean, I think Obviously has the best chance of any of the American horses in there. You know, I mean, you hear a lot of people talking about Seek again, and yeah, he did get a rough trip in the Chadwell, kind of a funny ride, actually. But, I mean, Obviously has a proven track record on this turf course that when he's good, he's exceptional. And you look at his last race, and he didn't get off well. And then he had to rush up, and I think that's a very legitimate excuse for his last race. Now, whether he's good enough to hold off the cavalry when all these European horses start coming at him is another matter, but I agree with you that he is the best of the Americans. Now, Toronado, I think the interesting thing about Toronado and the potential hole in his game is this is a horse with a history of breathing problems. He's had several surgical procedures to try to correct some wind problems. That's why he wasn't at the Breeders' Cup last year. It was well documented that Richard Hannon was prepping him for the Breeders' Cup, and they had to pull the plug because his breathing just got so bad that they had to go in for another procedure. Now this year, same deal, but he's here and he's training well. It's just you've always got that kind of thing in the back of your mind. It's a fun race though, it really is.
And I want to touch on the sprint because that's one of my better bets of the day, and I find this maybe an intriguing storyline, and I'm wondering if NBC has touched on this at all. I think Rich Rich Tapestry coming in from Hong Kong, is going to be very, very intriguing. That Hong Kong and Japan are such insular racing venues, but it's high quality racing, and because they offer so much money, they don't have to travel around to earn their living. But you go over in Asia and Australia, I think they produce very good sprinters, and I think Rich Tapestry is going to be very, very intriguing in the sprint.
I sensed where you were going with that right away. I mean, there's so much speed in that race. I mean, there always is in the sprint, but I think this is more of a speed-laden sprint field than I can remember in a long time. I mean, and now and then you add Seeking the Sheriff, who drew the number one post, which means they're going to have to go with him. And, Private Zone, Fast Anna, and then you throw in Secret Circle and Bakken and all the other speed horses. That it really, I think, is going to set up for Rich Tapestry because he's a push-button kind of horse. And he's going to find himself 3-4 lengths off the pace probably for, which is not how he typically runs. But, he showed no problem in the San Diego Sprint Championship of being very rateable, and he went wherever, rated wherever Deleuze wanted him to rate. I think one of the interesting things about him, besides the whole Hong Kong deal, is that a lot of people here didn't realize when he ran at Santa Anita that he had run on dirt before. They changed the Hong Kong inner track 4 or 5 years ago from poly track to dirt. It is a traditional, as we would call it, a traditional dirt track. And this horse is actually undefeated on dirt. The primary racing surface in Hong Kong is grass, and he's probably 3 or 4 lengths slower on grass than he is on dirt. He said, I think 3 races now, or maybe 4. I think it's 3 on dirt, 2 in Hong Kong and 1 in Santa Anita. He's had several what they call barrier trials in Hong Kong. It's almost like a training race, and on dirt, and he won all of those easily. Those don't show up in the past performances, but I think he's had 3 of those. So this is a horse that has dirt experience, and I think the race is going to set up for him. He's the most likely winner there.
Yeah, I find him very intriguing, and if that morning line of 5-1 holds up, I may wind up being very happy. And finally, let's take a look at the Classic and get some of your thoughts there, because, again, it's maybe not the strongest edition of the Classic, and the handicap division, which we